feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome back to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. We're just here, a couple of comedians talking about sports, having fun. Please give our YouTube channel a subscribe, comment if you would like, give it a like, do all that good stuff. We're recording, as always, here, Engle Studios, downtown Tucson. So please check that out. And who do we got today? It's kind of a different one. You know what I mean?
Collection of dudes.
A collection.
Like
I like
Three
that.
Amigos episode.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's football
But on the
season.
other side.
On the other side, on the defensive side of the ball. Today we're going to talk about one of the greatest, yet probably one of the most underrated linebacking cores in NFL history. Who we got today, Chris?
We got the Dome Patrol, and we're not talking about those ladies on Hinge. We're talking about
Dome.
one of the best defensives. And this is the thing.
Going to the Sodome zone.
This is the thing. Oh, that's beautiful. They are just the best collection of linebackers. It's kind of like what everybody says, just because like you look at, I think it's like 86 to 92, 93.
Yeah.
They're just the best.
They're the best, and they're doing it in a football market that also isn't, for professional football, super out there and popular. And they're doing it for a franchise which had experienced nothing but hello, darkness, my old friend for about 20 years since their inception.
I was just going to say they were like the dregs of...
Yeah. So the Saints came out in 1967, 20 straight non-winning seasons. From 67 to 86. They ruined Archie Manning. In 79, they went 8-8 and followed that up with a 1-15 season in 1980. Bum Phillips tried as much as he could to make them good, but didn't end up happening.
They just were not a good franchise.
And after 1985, where they finished 5-11 after a couple hovering around 500 seasons with Kenny the Snake Stabler, he decides to get Jim Mora from the USFL and a couple of other assistant coaches who will come into play, one of whom is still coaching now for the Miami Dolphins as their defensive coordinator.
Oh,
Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
He was a linebackers coach for him.
Wild.
So let's get into the first piece, though. Outside linebacker and pass rusher, drafted second round in 1981.
Who's your
51st
first? Who's your
overall.
first? That's I'm like...
Well, he's the first one, and because of the defense that Bum Phillips ran, the 3-4, since there's four linebackers, he's a perfect fit. They decided to go and get an 81. We need to do an episode on this draft because it's arguably one of the greatest defensive drafts of all time, Rickey Jackson. Rickey Jackson
out of University of Pitt, which when you look at the NFL players that were on that team, you're like, oh, was Pitt a really great college at one point?
Yeah, no, they were. Dan Marino
always forget
out there hurting his nose, allegedly.
Well, hey, I don't want to
Allegedly.
I don't want to point any dolphins at the man. You know what I mean?
But he was known as the other defensive end because Hugh Green was like Outland Trophy winner, that type of thing. And Rickey, but Pitt had a history here in the 80s of there's another guy, Chris Dolman, who's in the Hall of Fame. He was a pass rusher for Pitt. So
yeah. So that's what I mean. I just always forget that they were really a powerhouse with a bunch of great, guys. But yeah, you look at Rickey Jackson, which I do want to say he changed his name.
Yes.
From Ricky in high school to Ricky with an E because he wanted it. He needed it. And I can only imagine because, and this is the thing, they asked why, and he just said because he felt like he wanted that.
Everybody needs a little extra E, Chris.
And when he's turning in his English paper and his teacher has to go, Ricky, I think you misspelt your name. That conversation had to have been hilarious.
Rickey, did you take special classes in high school?
Yeah, what kind of classes did you take?
What
kind of bus did you take here,
we were
Ricky?
just talking about. God damn.
Beautiful.
Anyway, even though the team around him is not so great, he's seriously producing like a madman. As a rookie, he has 8 sacks and 125 tackles. And then he makes the Pro Bowl, 82 strike shortened, but 83, 84, 85, he makes the Pro Bowl, 35 sacks and over 300 tackles. Granted, this team's 500 at best, but he's a perfect strong side outside linebacker because cat quick enough to get off the edge after the quarterback, but strong enough to play against the run. Like, it's a very important piece to have in a 3-4 defense. And as bad as the Saints are, he's like their marketable best star at this point.
Yes.
Like him. And you have other pieces of guys who went to the Pro Bowl, like a Dave Waymer in the defensive backfield. But, like, at least you got Rickey every Sunday.
Well, this was the stat that I just love stats like this. In 13 seasons with the Saints, he missed 2 games.
I know. Oh, my God, right?
Because of a car accident where he missed 2 games, and then for the rest of the season, he wired his jaw shut and had a special helmet and then played. So he didn't miss because of any kind of football injury. He got in a car accident and then still played for the rest of the season with his jaw wired.
Hey, do you remember? I don't know if you remember. In that era, though, his face mask was like that old Justin Tuck one where it's just bar. Oh, God, he was nasty.
Yes, they had the look. That was the other thing. If you look them up, you're like, they look like a scary defense.
So, 100%. The interesting thing, though, about this is, and the good thing is, Jamora comes in 1986 along with defensive coordinator Steve Sidwell and linebackers coach Vic Fangio. And all 3 other linebackers come in that same season in 86, which I found interesting.
I thought that was great.
One of whom is drafted. We'll talk about him. The other outside linebacker, Pat Swilling.
Okay. Let's get into old Patty.
This is just prototypical 3-4 off the blind side outside line. He was an up the field just pass rusher. More so in that regard than Rickey Jackson, who would actually play the run, and he was nasty. Just absolutely nasty.
Well,
Pat Swilling.
Not like these other 2 guys, but when he came out of college, he was this guy that everybody knew was, because at Georgia Tech, I saw he had 7 sacks in one game.
Yeah, that's like Jared Thomas.
And you're just like, oh, yeah, this guy is like someone to be feared, because they literally are lining up these linebackers where you're like, oh, yeah, that guy was the best. Like, it's...
You know what era this is, too? Because 86 was the same year this guy won the MVP as a defender. Everyone's looking for the next LT.
Yep.
Everyone is looking for the next Lawrence Taylor. And
you know how I feel about crack.
Well, I mean, don't smoke crack. Still LT.
Still one of the best advices you ever give kids.
Oh, God. But, I mean, you bring him in, you're solidified on the edges, and Jim Mora, who enjoyed a ton of success in the USFL. You know, we haven't done an episode on it, but we kind of brought it up here and there.
Yep.
I believe he won 2 championships with the Baltimore and Philly Stars. One of the guys was one of the guys who played under him, who has probably one of the most interesting stories in NFL history about how he even got there in Sam Mills. Let's get into him right now.
Well, Sam Mills, he was kind of smaller in stature, if you will.
5'9". Shorter than me. But
it's pretty wild. He was like a wrestler and football player, but everybody really just discounted him because of his size.
He had every other tool except height, which, and get into this, he doesn't go to Pitt. He doesn't go to Georgia Tech. He goes to Montclair State in New Jersey. I didn't know that it was a school.
Sounds like an Italian dish. Yes, it does, Frank. Yes, it does. So as a walk-on, though. So he wasn't.
Yeah, you wasn't even given a scholarship.
Exactly. And this is what I love. He went to Montclair as a walk-on, ended as the leader in tackles with 501.
Yeah.
Leader in everything.
Leader in everything. And you can just hear Randy Newman in the background going, short people. Yeah.
He had 22 tackles in a game. It's crazy. He was without a doubt their best, but he was the same age as Rickey, so he comes out in 82 and goes to
81.
In 81 and goes to the Browns, who don't actually sign him. So it's like they don't draft him. They preseason train
undrafted
him.
Free agent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Doesn't sign with them. Signs with the Toronto Argonauts, but almost the same thing happens.
And then 1 season as a greeter at the Desert Inn.
That's right. Oh man.
No, but he goes up to Canada. The Argos say, "No, you're too short," and you're just like. You almost think and we'll get into it later, maybe his height doesn't hurt him because he's hiding behind these mammoth defensive linemen and these running backs when they hit the hole. Oh, here comes Sam Mills, ready to destroy your life.
Well, what I saw with the Argonauts, though, was they were so impressed by him was they told the Baltimore whatever Stars that, hey, here's a guy if you want to try him out.
Well, it was the former Cleveland coach. It was Sam
Oh, it was the
Rutigliano.
former- yes,
Because he
okay.
was just like, look, I can't put a 5'9". People are going to laugh at me. Like,
Yeah.
he was not able to take the chance. But Carl Peterson, who later became GM of all those really good Marty Schottenheimer
Yep.
Chiefs teams in the 90s, was the GM for the Philly Stars in the USFL, where Jim Mora is coaching at the moment. And they're like, yeah, we'll give him a tryout. Mm-hmm. And according to them, he just lit it up.
Yep.
And what was his nickname, Chris?
Oh, I didn't see what his nickname was.
His
What
nickname was the Field Mouse.
Oh, the Field Mouse. Yes, I did see that. Oh, my
He
God.
said he was a mouse running around a field of elephants, but the elephants wanted nothing to do with him.
So good because he really was that piece. Because, like, when you look at this all together, because they weren't, like, similar guys. Like you were saying, they really fit their position and worked off of each other.
He's your perfect inside linebacker for this 3-4 who can, I mean, him and the other guy we'll discuss, not only could play the run, but also play against the pass and just light people up. But he's the defensive captain. He's the one calling out the signals, calling out the formations pre-snap.
Yep.
I mean, he's the guy you look to, and he's the shortest guy on the field, which is absolutely amazing. So you're getting him from the USFL, and you can make the argument, excluding Reggie White, he's probably the best defensive player in the history of the USFL.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And
especially with his resume coming in and then doing it at the NFL with this great defense, that's probably pretty accurate.
So, and the final guy we'll talk about, also a USFL guy, just on a different team. He came in with a little different USFL story, though, than Sam, is Vaughan Johnson.
Yep.
Who, much bigger than Sam, total thumper, arguably one of the hardest hitters of the 1980s.
I was just going to say,
a lot of people have said that.
Such the opposite of Sam. He was like 6'3", 6'4", like huge. And that was when we researched these guys, that was literally the thing that people said. They were just like, he hit so hard, you could hear it throughout the stadium.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, I could see that.
Randy Cross of the 49ers, their longtime center, said their first season, so this would have been 86, he's like, Roger Craig is one of the best all-around backs in the NFL. We give him a toss play. He goes out there and is absolutely lit up by Vaughan Johnson. And he's like, Roger comes back to the huddle and says, I don't know who that guy was, but I don't want that to happen ever again.
I can only imagine. He plays 2 seasons in the USFL.
But he came out of college at North Carolina State. He was a 2-time AP All-American.
Yep.
He was talking about how Tom Landry was calling him headed into the NFL draft, I believe, in 1984, where we're going to take you in the first. Dallas Cowboys are going to take you in the first round. However, as Vaughan explains it, the thing that the USFL had, which we kind of talked about with other of these separate leagues like the ABA or the AFL, they just wanted guys.
Oh, yeah.
And to do this, the way they set their drafts up was, where do you want to play? And we'll give you the money to go and play. So he took advantage of that, and he said, well, I'd love to play for Dallas, but because of the way the NFL draft works, I don't want to go to like Green Bay or somewhere.
Yep.
Like he wanted to play kind of closer to home. So
well, to be honest, in this time, he probably wouldn't have wanted to go to New Orleans.
No,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely not. No.
That's one of those things where it kind of comes around where it is a good path for him. He goes to Jacksonville for the Jacksonville Bulls.
Mm-hmm. Plays 2 great seasons for them.
He really does.
And kind of unlike Mills, though, he's one of these guys like a Steve Young or a Reggie White or a Gary Zimmerman. He's actually taken in this 1984
the supplemental
because the NFL, not a lot of respect seeing where the USFL is going. It's like, we're going to take all your guys.
Exactly.
So he's drafted 15th, so pretty damn good.
No, definitely a high pick. You can tell he's one of the guys that, like we were saying, coming out of the USFL is wanted by probably every team. You know?
So let's get into 1987, because 1986 they go 7-9. You see immediate improvement under Jim Mora. And the one thing I did want to add, because of Bum and Wade Phillips playing this 3-4 system scheme, Sidwell coming in with Mora, it's a pretty seamless transition. Like you have Rickey Jackson, and then you just fill out the rest of your starting lineup in 1 year. Not only fill it out, put as we'll discuss, Pro Bowlers in your lineup and future Hall of Famers in your lineup. So in 87, 20 years, no winning seasons, Chris. No winning seasons. But guess what they do this year?
87, they take it over and they finally have a really great team.
They don't win their division because San Francisco this year.
Because San Francisco is...
That 87 Niners are probably one of the best teams to never make a Super Bowl. But
Yep.
they won 12 games.
Yes.
And, no disrespect.
Pre-wild card, so all of that kind of stuff where they don't make the playoffs, but they are one of the best teams in the NFL. Top, 8.
Yeah, no, I mean they make the playoffs that year. They were the 5th ranked in defensive points against. Johnson led the team in tackles. Jackson had almost 10 sacks. Swilling had 10.5, and then Mills makes the Pro Bowl. I mean, that's exactly what you want.
And I was just going to say, this is the start of everybody making the Pro Bowl. So Mills makes it this year, and then you just see other guys make it, and you're just like, they're just kind of dulling it out. You're just like, you were a little bit better this year.
This is no disrespect to quarterbacks like Bobby Hebert, John Forsad, Steve Walsh, but the entire team is this, as far as the success they go, as the defense goes.
Yes.
And, no disrespect to the defensive linemen or the defensive backs, because Sidwell, they said from 86 to 94, seven defensive players made the Pro Bowl a total of 18 times.
That's crazy.
Yes. So that's basically a 9-year period. You're sending at least 2 guys a year.
Yeah, at least 2 a year.
So pretty darn
impressive
incredible.
defense numbers.
But everything is coming up New Orleans this year. People are excited about the team. They get their asses kicked in the wild card by the Vikings, 44-10, but they have the best linebacking core in the NFL, and they're all relatively younger. Yes. I think Mills and Jackson are the oldest, and they're still like late 20s.
I was just going to say, because they are like these younger guys, 2 guys are like you said, the same age, and the other 2 guys are pretty much the same age. So it's got to be exciting at this time. God, 20 years with losing seasons is brutal, especially because they were never good.
No, it wasn't like they were hovering around a playoff spot.
Exactly.
It was just like you broke Archie Manning's spirit.
Yes, they were. Yes.
So 88, they win 10 games again. Unfortunately, they missed the playoffs. They lost 3 of their last 4, but defense was still points allowed.
Yep.
Johnson leads them in tackles again. Jackson, 92 tackles, 7 sacks. Swilling, 7 sacks, tied for the team lead. Mills makes a Pro Bowl again with over 100 tackles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what sucks. You won 10 games, and you're out.
Yes.
You're out of the playoffs, and your defense is like the best in the NFL as far as takeaways, sacks, interceptions, and your linebackers are that good. Just ridiculous.
I was going to say, Mills ends up making 4 Pro Bowls, and that's what you see with him being undersized and coming in, you're just like, oh yeah, he was like the heart of this. But they were such a great 4 lineup. You know what I mean?
And they all kind of played off each other, like knowing what their roles were as far as just like, we're going to annihilate people.
Yeah, not selfish, but very defense, team oriented.
Yeah.
Sounds like socialism to me. But yeah, they were so good.
89, they led the league in rush defense.
Yep.
This year they missed the playoffs with 9 wins, but
you're having winning seasons and you having, it's got to be better.
And Johnson and Swilling make the Pro Bowl this year.
Oh, yes. So, this is when Johnson makes it.
Yeah, so it's absolutely crazy because now all of their linebackers have made at least 1 NFL Pro Bowl.
Yep.
And we're not even at the end of this run. 1990, they go 8-8. They make the wild card. 8th in points against this season. Mills leads the team in tackles. Jackson, 7 fumble recoveries this year. I mean, what the hell are you even doing? Johnson and Swilling make the Pro Bowl again. Swilling at 11. This is that like 3 or 4 year window where Pat Swilling is in that category of best pass rusher in the NFL too. Like he's just lighting people the fuck up.
Yep.
Make the wild card, but they lose to Hurricane Ditka.
Oh yeah,
in the playoffs, 16-6. So that kind of tells you I'm not saying they need to pitch a shutout every week.
Yeah, but They're not putting up points.
No. But then we get into 91, and why is this season special, Chris?
91, so
25th season in New Orleans.
And you see, I forget who it was, but it was Swilling had such a ridiculous season.
Yeah.
To where, so in 91, he had 17 sacks, and he was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Where you think you were just like, 17 sacks is so many. That's
over a sack a game.
Yes.
A regular season game that's over a sack.
It's crazy.
This year they led the league in points allowed as a defense, which is pretty incredible. And because of their 9-1 start, they win the NFC West. Yes, New Orleans played in the NFC West because the NFL didn't learn geography until 2002.
Yep.
They win their first NFC West division title. Finally. It happened.
Yeah.
Like, it freaking happened for them. Jackson had 11.5 sacks this year.
That was it. Everybody had really great.
Mills made the Pro Bowl.
Yep.
102 tackles. Johnson even got hurt and made the 3 guys.
Oh, yeah. He got hurt and made the Pro Bowl.
Have they given Rickey Jackson his due 11.5 sacks, all 4 would have made the Pro Bowl that year.
Yep.
Which, absolutely insane.
Would have been awesome.
That would have been so cool. And you're thinking, oh, my God, they won the division. A home playoff game again. Home playoff game. And who do they draw, Chris?
I forgot. Who do they play?
Prime time.
Oh, yeah.
That 91 Falcons team comes in. And,
they don't have playoff success. Unfortunately for this team, it's almost too reliant on defense.
What's kind of ridiculous is I'm sure if you asked people our age about them, unless they were like into football, they wouldn't remember them.
No,
they wouldn't talk about them.
Well, they're just not. They were dominant defense, but they just didn't have. And this is why it's football, because literally you have to have some sort of competent offense, but they just weren't a great team. They were just the best defense.
Yeah, just the best defense and the best linebackers.
Because the best linebackers.
The next year, they run it back. They win one more game. They go 12-4 in 92. They just get a wild card spot. They lead the league in pass defense this year. They're the top wild card team. The defense is even better in points allowed. They're number 1. Yards, they're second. And this year is special because all 4 guys make the Pro Bowl.
Oh, okay, this is the 92.
Is the year 92.
Yeah.
Mills has 130 tackles. Johnson has 84 and a sack and 3 forced fumbles. Jackson has 13.5 sacks, 6 forced fumbles. Swilling's first team AP All-Pro with 10.5 sacks. They're bludgeoning people.
Yes, they are, and it is this scary defense, but that's it. You know what I mean? It's
like, if we get to like 20, we'll beat you.
Yes.
I would figure that would be every offensive meeting. Like, look, this week's going to suck a lot, but
we need 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, and I swear to God we'll do it.
And like, hey, special teams can help us out.
Yep.
Maybe even our defense could get some points.
That's
Maybe
right.
they bumblefuck around.
I'm not saying you guys have to score all the points.
Just try. Just give it the old college try, guy. Vaughan Johnson will probably take your soul, but it's going to be okay. But unfortunately, didn't win a playoff game again. They had a home playoff game against the Eagles, and they lost by 16 points. And at March, I did want to say, leading into 92, Pat Swilling was offered a contract by Detroit. The Saints ended up matching it, so he came back for one more.
Okay.
So he was one of the restricted free agents. Unfortunately, after the season, Detroit tried again. And heading into 93, he's gone for first and fourth round picks.
Yep.
So you lost Defensive Player of the Year no more than a season prior. And now we kind of start to see the end
of this
Dome Patrol.
Just a little thing on Pat Swilling, which I thought was sad. Going to the Lions, we know this. Check out one of our first
Bobby
episodes.
Lane, yes.
He goes to the Lions, loses 2 playoff games there, and he has the most playoff losses without ever getting a win. And I just feel so bad for him for that. He has 6. He's 0-6.
Oh my God! You know what's funny? They were talking about when Detroit won the NFC North this year. They hadn't won a division title in 30 years. Pat Swilling was on that team.
So good.
In the long ago.
Long ago. Yeah, so it starts to break down.
Luckily for them, though, in 93, Ronaldo's Turnbull former first-round pick who had been kind of just waiting.
Yeah.
Because they probably drafted him to replace Jackson, not to replace Swilling. I think he was drafted in 89. He's first-team AP All-Pro with 13 sacks this year. Everyone's producing. Jackson makes it back to the Pro Bowl with 11.5 sacks. Johnson leads the team in tackles that year. Mills only played in 9 games. And the D was the D this year, first in pass defense, but they're 22nd, I believe, in yards. Or 22nd in points a game.
Oh, yeah.
They started the season 5-0 and then lost 8 of their next 11.
Yeah, they really lost it all on this season.
And then the following year, 94, Jackson goes ring chasing. He goes to San Francisco.
He gets one.
And more power. The next 2 seasons he played in San Francisco, just added to his insane career totals.
Yep.
Like, he wasn't just a guy on the team.
And that's Rickey with an E.
Rickey with an E. Not with a Y. Well, there's a Y.
There's a Y, but he added an E. But yeah, he goes ring chasing, and that's kind of where you see this kind of really dissolve.
And Johnson goes to Philadelphia.
Yep.
Trying to ring chase. But Rich Kotite puts a stop to that for the Eagles. They go 7-9. They're 27 in 28 of 28 teams in scoring. Mills has an incredible year, 155 tackles, but by 1995, which sucks, they don't make any decision to bring him back.
Oh, yes.
So Mills, the last of which, he goes to Carolina.
He goes to Carolina.
And what's funny is,
as a free agent,
he made more Pro Bowls in New Orleans, spent way more years in New Orleans, but he's like Mr. Carolina Panther.
well, because he got a Pro Bowl in '96, and he was the oldest player ever to get a Pro Bowl at that point. And then for the Panthers,
Yeah.
I did see, which I think, because he retired the next year. He retired in '97.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Mora said about Mills, which Mora coached for 15 years in the NFL and 5 in the whatever, you know what I mean? So
he's a defensive guy. That was his bread and butter.
yes, and he said that Sam Mills was the best player that he had ever coached. And I remember thinking that, you were just like, oh yeah, that really is. And the way Sam went and got to this, where everyone was just like, no. I think that's one of the best stories in this.
Oh yeah, no, and as far as Sam Mills is concerned, he even said something to the extent of like he got more out of every ounce of talent than any player that he ever coached.
Oh yeah,
which is just ridiculous. But as far as these guys, are concerned and their professional careers with New Orleans, Johnson made 4 Pro Bowls, is in the Saints Hall of Fame. Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame as well. Swilling had 76.5 sacks and 4 Pro Bowls in what? 6 years?
6
with them?
years,
7
yeah.
years with them? That's ridiculous. Rickey Jackson is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, had 123 sacks just with the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Just with the Saints.
Super Bowl champion.
Super Bowl champion. He actually, funny thing is, he was elected to the NFL Hall of Fame, I believe, the day before the Saints won their Super Bowl.
That's awesome.
Because he got his ring with San Francisco, but
still.
he was there for the before times.
Yes.
All the other 3 showed up right before the party started. He was there when,
That long ago.
Oh, in the long ago. And Sam Mills, what an incredible player. What else can you say about him? I think all 3 made like 4 Pro Bowls with the Saints.
Yep.
4 or 5 Pro Bowls for Jackson. And then Mills, 4 Pro Bowls with the Saints. 2 USFL titles. But over time, in his inspirational story, because he did end up dying, I think in 2005 of intestinal cancer.
Yep.
It was a Panthers coach and everything. Over the course of time and memory, you don't remember those postseason losses in the first round.
Nah.
You just don't.
Nah.
2022, he made the NFL Hall of Fame, which was much deserved for a very odd career path.
Exactly.
But for the Saints, Jim Mora, and particularly Steve Sidwell, who was a longtime defensive coordinator in the NFL, to put together this defense and resurrect is probably a good word even for the Saints, resurrect this franchise from where it had previously been as far as good God. Mm-hmm.
Because they, like we said, 20 years of not even being competitive.
Yeah.
And then,
And he was also, where Fangio was a linebackers coach, he doubled also as the inside linebackers coach.
Oh.
So he's getting the most out of these guys brought from the USFL,
makes
particularly
sense.
Sam Mills. Like that, an unbelievable collection of talent.
Yeah.
Like most people don't even remember anymore. So if you have a chance, go on the old YouTube or the old internet and check out some highlights of these guys and even some Saints football because it's not really talked about anymore.
No, the
You just
Dome
think
Patrol.
You just keep thinking of Breeze and Katrina, but it was more before that.
Yep.
It was more. It was more besides depressed Archie Manning and people with bags on their heads. There was more. Like the Dome Patrol, there was more. 2 Hall of Famers in a linebacking core. You can't say that about most
No,
groups.
you can't.
No. So,
All right.
Dome Patrol.